or the second reason. And to me, I am leaning on number one and a foreshadowing of number two. And I say this with the utmost respect to those Bible scholars that probably may not have thought of that. I would say that he wrote this not only for the disciples, for his very own 12, but for the very own 102 passengers that went on the Mayflower. There is lots to be thankful for, guys. Number one, the pilgrims on their journey had a lot to be thankful for. They had landed on the other side of the world. They would now worship God. It took them, 6 months, I think. They would now worship God the way they wanted to. No government would force them to take sides on their religious views. They came to advance the kingdom of God. 1619 is the lie, the most horrible, and I'm going to say this to you, 1619 people. It's the most horrible lie on earth, because how do you cancel out the goodness of this country is by going 1 year before and making it evil. First of all, in 1619, there was no United States of America. It was Jamestown, and it was an English colony, and the English colony, it was just a little port. That's it. And the people that were buying and selling were not only English, but Arab Muslims. And guess what? For you natives, Native Americans were buying Irish, they were buying Africans, and they were using them as slave labor. So the 1619 is a lie from the pit of hell, and I will say it to the ends of the earth, because Satan wants the whole world to think that America is this evil country that was started by evil, that was uh, the foundations of the White House, the foundations of Congress, the Capitol, everything was founded and worked by slaves. Just a little over 1% of the population in the New World owned slaves. And I will be doing another video where I can show you the Federalist Papers. Alexander Hamilton was saying that all the founding fathers had fought, had argued. Most wanted to, they were abolitionists. And even those that had slaves knew that they were wrong, because a lot of them were listening to the Christian pastors. So in the Federalist Papers before the Constitution, they wanted to make a law that those slaves would have 20 years, serve 20 years, and they would be free, and their kids would be free from that point on. So the lie from the 1619 Project, it is a lie from the pit of hell. The hardships, almost half of them died first year, had it not been for the native peoples here. 52 passengers out of 100 who traveled on Mayflower survived the first winter from 1620 to 1621. Mayflower sailed from England September 1620 with 102 passengers, mostly English separatists or pilgrims, along with others seeking new opportunities, about 30 crew members. Only one passenger, William Button, died during the 66-day voyage. So 101 arrived in November of 1620. Harsh conditions really hurt them, including the cold weather, inadequate shelter, scurvy, pneumonia, malnutrition. It led to massive deaths over the winter. Historical records, including William Bradford's account, show that 50 people died between landing on March 1621, leaving 52 survivors by spring. Some sources cite 51 or 53 due to slight differences. That's all. Um, Deaths 50, survivors 52, crew half died. By 1621, some new births, which helped. But again, the harsh conditions continued. Tough early years is not just the first one. A man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directed his steps. Proverbs 16:9. I learned the hard way, guys. I have learned that I can plan it as much as I want. I can put it on my planner. I can do 100 things, goals, and do this and do that. If it's not God's will, it's not going to happen. For those of you of you that do not believe in uh, a providential God, a God who is active, a God who is alive, a God that loves you, that wants the best for you, that wants to discipline you in order for you to get to the point to know him. If you notice your life, if you notice that you have a great house, a great wife, kids, you have a great job, and you're ever seeking this thing that you don't know what it is, that's what it is. God is directing your path. He directed you here. If you are listening and you do not believe in God, it is no coincidence that you're here. There is a reason why I survived this long. It could be because I needed to tell you, whoever you are, that God loves you, that God died for you, that he sent his only son to die on the cross for you, that he lived a perfect life, that his name was Jesus, which means in Hebrew, Yehoshua, Yeshua, God's salvation, that he fulfilled over 350 prophetic or predictions from the Hebrew scriptures or the Old Testament scriptures, that he is going to fulfill every single one of those prophecies that have not been fulfilled yet. There's plenty of them. And you cannot sit here and say that the world has gone to pot. You're seeing what's going on. And guess what? Christians knew that Russia would be in the news, that Iran, as in Persia, would be in the news. Russia, Gog, Magog, uh, uh, Iran, Persia, Babylon, Iraq, Israel. It's always going to be Israel. The Roman Empire, which is the European Union. The United States is not anywhere there. What happens? Do we are we the powerful empire of the European Union, the Roman Empire, or do we fizzle out because of something that happens? We don't know. Nothing that is here is a surprise to us. It'll be it's more when you hear a Christian who has read up and knows the Bible. It is exciting. They're exciting times right now. What you are seeing with the future mark of the beast, with this ID 2030, with this ID that Apple has, the facial ID, whatever it is that they're doing in Europe too. Guess what? Nothing surprises us. We're not sitting going, if you are here and you do not know the Lord, get to know him. There are links in my Please Be Still moments. I don't force anybody to see him. I want you, if your heart is pounding right now and saying, I have done everything in my life, I don't believe in God, I have everything that I have accomplished. Or the opposite, I have tried everything. I have tried partying, I have drank, I've used drugs, I've used women, I've done this, I've done that, and I'm still not happy. I'm still looking. Look for God, look to God, have him direct your path. There's a huge disclaimer, and I have to say it because I'm going to tell you something. God's ways are not our ways. In Isaiah 55, verses 8 and 9, it says that I don't claim to be an expert. I'm talking now, me. I don't claim to be an expert on God, his will, his ways, his providence, nor do I understand why he does what he does for the sake of his kingdom, for the sake of you knowing, getting to know him. Sometimes I see things and I think, why them? Or why that country? Or why those people? Or why the tribes? Or why, Hispanics? Or why Americans? Or why Europeans? Or why the Africans? His ways are not our ways. The disclaimer is that he did things in order for people here in the Western Hemisphere to get to know him. And I can't, the atrocities that happened later in the 1700s and 1800s and early 1900s, I can't explain. But I will tell you this, in his infinite wisdom, he knows how men's hearts are. He knows how wicked our hearts are, that we will usurp his path. We will go away from it. But what we plan for evil, God will turn it into good. I want you to remember this when we go through all this. Webster's, uh, William Webster wrote, I've got the 1829 big, huge dictionary. Um, Providence, the act of providing or preparing for future use or application. A providence for war is the best prevention of it. Foresight, timely care, particularly active foresight or foresight accompanied with the procurement of what is necessary for future use or with suitable preparation. How many of the troubles and perplexities of life proceed from want of providence? In theology, and this is where it comes in, the care and superintendence which God exercises over his creatures, that is us humans, that is the animal kingdom, that is the waves of the sea, the volcanoes that open up, the storms. He that acknowledges creation and denies a providence involves himself in a palpable contradiction. Okay, it goes on. You can print screen that. God, in his infinite wisdom, will act and do and provide and prepare for our future and for the application of his kingdom for many people to be saved, not just one group. The Pilgrims on Mayflower held a patent from the Virginia Company authorizing settlement in the northern parts of Virginia Colony. All that was Virginia Colony. If you're looking at purple, everything, all the bottom. Something happened though. So the Pilgrims going, and they're supposed to go to Manhattan, what is Long Island now. The why? A fierce storm in that November strongly moved through the wind, moved the ship off course, forcing them to drop anchor of all the places, Cape Cod near present-day Provincetown, Massachusetts, on November 9th, 1620, about 220 miles northeast of the intended site. After exploring the area for about a month, they relocated 30 to 35 miles across Cape Cod. Okay. What William Bradford later wrote of the Plymouth plantation was the unexpected northerly position hindered their plans and sowed discord among passengers. Fearing that they were outside their legal patent, modern recreations of the voyage, they recreated this in modern times. Mayflower 2 in 1957 crossing confirmed similar storm-driven drifts into the region. Pandemic in the New England area from the native tribes. The place was deserted by the Indians who were all dead of the plague. Thomas Morton, 1637, in New English Canaan. That's the book name. Providence. So imagine having traveled almost 70 days, landing in the wrong spot, not knowing where you are, and you send people to go walk around and scout the area. You find an empty village with everything there, including corn, dishes, utensils, everything you need, even gardens, which will need tending, but basically a turnkey, what people call in real estate turnkey. The area where the Pilgrims landed in 1620 was Patuxet, which they renamed Plymouth. Had been almost completely depopulated by a devastating epidemic or pandemic that struck the Wampanoag and neighboring Massachusetts tribes between roughly 1616 to 1619. Like I said earlier, contemporary and new contemporary sources combined with modern archaeological and epidemiological research give us a clear picture. Key data and citations, scale of mortality, estimates range from 70 to 90 mortality across coastal Massachusetts tribes. The Wampanoag, the Massachusetts, the Nauset. The village of Patuxet itself was essentially wiped out from perhaps 2,000 inhabitants in 1615 to zero or near zero by 1619. His ways are not our ways. Timing of epidemic, you got to understand this. The primary wave was between 1616 and 1619. It's thought to have been French shipwreck survivors on Cape Cod in 1615 and English fishing trade vessels in that time during 1614 to 1617 that were believed to have brought or introduced these pathogens, those Pesky, dirty Europeans, man. Samuel de Champlain's 1660 map and journal notes a sharp drop in native population along the coast compared to his 1605 visit. Source is Thomas Dermer, 1619 letter, reports finding ancient plantations not long since popular is now utterly void, likely disease. Modern scholarship strongly favors leptospirosis, possibly complicated by the secondary infections rather than classic bubonic plague or smallpox. And it goes on. The point I'm trying to make is that the pandemic of the Native American tribes in New England, coastal New England, from 1616 to 1619, the jaundice, the high fever, the rapid death, no pox, they match leptospirosis carried by Europeans and the rats and transmitted via contaminated water. It goes on. There's so many. You can look it up. You can ask AI and all this. Okay. So Patrick said the village mortality estimates, the deaths. Thomas Morton again. The place was deserted by Indians who were all dead of the plague. They walked in and people had already died and had left. They were afraid to live in those villages. So, what are the odds? The sequence of events, and this is so important, guys. It is so important. Number one, because God directs the paths. Providence concludes that there is a living God that is in the affairs of men still, even now. How do I know? The country of Israel. Ezekiel talks about dead bones coming back to life. Every part, every sinew, every fiber, everything comes back to these dead, dry bones. That is the country of Israel. Love them or hate them, they are God's people. Whether the government, I don't agree with the government 100%. I don't agree with my government 100%. I don't agree with any governments 100%. I don't even agree with the United Nations. The United Nations are just a joke. They are the United Nations are a joke because they don't do anything. All they do is talk. All they do is hate on one country or another. It is the United Nations it's the tournament, the consolation prize tournament countries who want to be big, but they're not. And I know I sound horrible. It will never be perfect because the United Nations are a bunch of men and women whose hearts are wicked. They need Jesus. Sequence of events is one of the most astonishing coincidence, or depending on worldview, for me, providential alignments in American history. Let's break it down piece by piece. Now, I want you to think of the probability or the improbability of the whole chain of events that took place in order for the pilgrims to land on Plymouth Rock. It wasn't Plymouth Rock, but the key improbable events of the Mayflower being blown hundreds of miles off course. They're not natural, guys. If they're not natural, then who? Mayflower ship blown hundreds of miles off course by storms. The original destination was New York, Hudson River area, the Manhattan area, where English fishing trading outposts already existed and where the climate was milder. Actual landing, Cape Cod, Plymouth, one of the windiest, rockiest, most exposed parts of New England coast in late November. The odds may be 1 in 20 to 30, and these are conservative estimates. I asked AI to give me a very supernatural and a super conservative. I'm going by conservative. That a single North Atlantic crossing in that era ends up this far north and east purely by storm. Most ships either made Virginia or wrecked entirely. 1 in 20 to 30. They happen to explore and settle on the exact site of Patuxet, a recently emptied Wampanoag village. Patuxet had been a substantial village, 2,000 people plus, with cleared fields, like I said earlier, fresh water, good harbor, and brook running through it. Virtually the entire population was wiped out. by the epidemic. The epidemic itself, it's important for you to understand this. They hit a specific area at that time, 1616, 1619. The great die-off was localized mostly to coastal Massachusetts from Maine to Buzzards Bay. Inland tribes, example, the Narragansett, the Pequot, were largely unaffected. If the epidemic had struck 10 years earlier or 10 years later, Patuxent would have been fully occupied or fully regrown. Timing window, roughly a 5 to 7 year sweet spot for the centuries. I hate to use sweet spot. A period, a perfect period, was not by chance. It is 1 in 50 chance at the exact timing in that exact area for the pilgrims to have landed. Then, let me go on. I don't know what I was trying to do there. God's ways are not our ways. They were blown off course, end up in Massachusetts, again, 1 in 20 to 30. Happened to anchor in one of the rockiest places, not wrecked, and go scout and find a village, but not just find a village. They found Patuxent that had everything they needed: fresh water, cleared fields, good harbor, a brook running through it. The entire population's gone. Turnkey, like I said. They picked the one place these pilgrims were able to walk into. They just happened by chance. They went and scouted. Literally ready-made, abandoned. English-style farming village, clear land, no hostile inhabitants left. Odds of picking that exact spot blindly, perhaps 1 in 1 to 200 along the coastline. +10 years before, +10 years after, only coastal tribes. Coincidence is not kosher. The odds are 1 in 50. Here's the most important part. Tisquantum, or Squanto as we know him, the sole surviving Patuxent man, having been kidnapped into slavery in 1614, learning English in England and Spain, and returning in 1619 just in time. He was kidnapped by Thomas Hunt in 1614, sold in Malaga, Spain, escaped or was freed to England, lived in London with the Newfoundland Company, sailed back with Dermer in 1619, found his entire people dead, was living with the Wampanoag when the Pilgrims arrived in 1620, voluntarily helped them because he had nowhere else to go, and spoke perfect English. He is literally the only native speaker of the English language from that exact place on the entire eastern seaboard at that moment. He was a modern day Joseph from Genesis chapter 36 and on. This part is so specific that historians openly call it almost miraculous. The odds of the one surviving Patuxent tribesman being a fluent English speaker who was taken away from the disease, brought back in perfect time, who wanted to help are astronomically super incredible. People sometimes joke 1 in 1 billion, and it's not that far off. I'm giving you conservative estimates, though, for those of you that don't believe in a God, in providence, in his will.